Chosen one, tomorrow is not just another page on the calendar. It is a hinge moment, a quiet crossing between what has been and what has been withheld until now. You didn't stumble into this message. It arrived because heaven knows exactly where you are standing, exactly what you've been carrying, and exactly how close you are to the edge of your own strength. There are seasons when effort matters, and there are moments when alignment matters more than anything you could ever do. Tomorrow belongs to the second kind. You've been searching for answers in conversations, signs in patterns, confirmation in people who could only meet you halfway. You tried patience. You tried explaining. You tried being strong longer than you should have had to be. And chosen one, before we go deeper, pause for a moment, hit subscribe, and comment Amen if your spirit is already responding. Because this message is about to speak directly to you, not loudly, but precisely, exactly where you need it. Here is the mystery you've been feeling but couldn't fully name. Some things do not move when pushed. They move when the timing unlocks. What no one else could resolve, not through logic, effort, or loyalty, is not broken. It was waiting. Waiting for a specific alignment of your heart, your readiness, and divine permission. That's why the delays felt intentional. That's why the resistance didn't make sense. You were being positioned, not denied. Chosen one, you have survived unseen battles. Battles of restraint, faith, and silence. Nights where you investigated your own thoughts, questioning whether you missed something, whether you waited too long, whether you misunderstood the assignment. But heaven saw what others couldn't. You didn't quit, you endured. You didn't harden, you refined. And now the light that has been forming quietly behind the scenes is about to touch the surface. Tomorrow is not about proving anything. It's about release. What has been locked by human limitation is about to loosen without effort. What felt complicated will simplify. What felt impossible will shift without explanation. This isn't magic. It's timing. It's the moment when divine movement steps in where human reach ends. You may not see fireworks. You may not hear thunder, but you will feel something unmistakable. Relief without struggle, clarity without debate, movement without force. That's how you'll know it wasn't man-made. That's how you'll recognize God's signature. Quiet, precise, irreversible. Stay present, stay open. Don't rush ahead of the moment. By this time tomorrow, something you thought would take months will already be settled in your spirit. And as this message unfolds, a hidden truth is about to rise. One that explains why everything had to happen exactly this way. Chosen one. There is a moment every soul reaches where effort runs out, not because you were weak, but because you were never meant to carry it alone. This is that moment. When human effort ends, it doesn't signal defeat. It signals a handoff, a sacred transition, a quiet release of control that makes room for something far greater to move. You've pushed as far as you could push. You've prayed, planned, adjusted, waited, and tried again. You analyzed every angle, replayed every conversation, asked yourself what you could have done differently. But there comes a point where striving no longer produces results, only exhaustion. And that moment is not punishment, it's preparation. Have you felt it lately? That strange stillness where effort feels heavy, but stopping feels oddly right? This is the place where grace enters. Grace does not compete with effort. It replaces it when effort has done its job. God often waits until your hands are full, your options are exhausted, and your will is surrendered before stepping in. Not to test you, but to protect you from carrying what was never meant to be yours. Control steps back so alignment can step forward. Tomorrow represents that shift. Not a dramatic collapse, but a subtle release. The realization that forcing outcomes was never the answer. That timing, not pressure, was the missing key. When control loosens, clarity rises. When you stop gripping the wheel, direction reveals itself. Have you noticed how peace begins to appear the moment you stop insisting? This is where divine movement feels different from human effort. There is no strain, no proving, no chasing. Things begin to reposition naturally. Conversations soften. resistance dissolves, paths open without explanation. It's not because you finally found the right strategy, it's because you stepped into the right season. Grace operates on timing, not urgency. You may have thought God was silent while you were trying harder, but He was watching closely, waiting for the moment you were ready to trust instead of manage. When effort ends, faith doesn't collapse, it deepens. And from that depth, God moves with precision. One shift can accomplish what months of striving could not. One moment of alignment can settle what years of effort could not fix. Ask yourself this gently. What if stopping isn't giving up, but giving over? What if tomorrow isn't about doing more, but allowing more? This is the kind of movement that doesn't announce itself loudly, but leaves undeniable evidence behind. You won't need to explain what changed. You'll feel it. The weight lifts, the tension eases, the next step becomes obvious without being forced. Chosen one, you are not late. You are not stuck. You are standing at the edge of divine intervention, the place where your hands finally open and God's hands begin to work. Let go without fear. Step back without guilt. Tomorrow is not about effort. It's about grace taking the lead. Stay present. Stay receptive. What moves next won't require your strength, only your trust. Chosen one. When this change arrives, it won't crash into your life with noise or force. It won't demand explanations or leave chaos behind. Instead, it will enter quietly, like a deep breath you didn't realize you were holding finally being released. The shift will feel sudden, yes, but peaceful, not startling, not destabilizing, settling. And that is how you'll know it's real. You've lived through changes that shook you before, moments that came with confusion, loss, emotional storms, or sudden pressure to react. This is not that kind of moment. This is not disruption. This is divine rearrangement. When God moves, He doesn't always announce it with thunder. Sometimes He restores order so gently that you only realize later how much has changed. Have you ever noticed how the most meaningful shifts happen without drama? This change will feel like clarity returning to a foggy room. One moment things feel unresolved, and the next, they simply make sense. Conversations soften. Decisions become obvious instead of stressful. The internal debate quiets down. There's no rush to prove anything, no urge to chase or fix or control. Instead, there's calm confidence, the kind that doesn't need reassurance because it knows it's aligned. And that peace is important. Peace is the confirmation. Chaos demands urgency. Peace brings assurance. When something is forced, it agitates the spirit. When something is guided, it settles the soul. That's why this shift won't feel like an explosion. It will feel like gravity rebalancing itself. What was unstable finds its place. What was heavy releases its weight. What was uncertain chooses a direction on its own. You may even question it at first. You might ask yourself, is this really happening? Why does this feel easy? That's because struggle trained you to expect resistance. But ease does not mean inauthentic. Ease can be evidence of alignment. When something no longer requires strain, it's often because you've entered the season where it belongs. Have you allowed yourself to trust calm instead of chaos? This kind of change doesn't need announcements. It doesn't arrive to impress others. It arrives to restore you. You'll notice your nervous system relaxing, your thoughts slowing, your reactions becoming measured instead of emotional. Things that once triggered you won't hold the same power. Not because you hardened, but because you healed. That's the quiet miracle happening beneath the surface. And while it may feel sudden, it's not rushed. This moment has been preparing longer than you realize. Every delay, every unanswered prayer, every closed door was shaping the timing. So when it finally arrives, it feels natural, like something clicking into place rather than falling apart. This is how God redeems time, not by undoing the past, but by settling the present. Chosen one, let this peace speak louder than fear ever did. Let the calm reassure you that you're not losing control. You're gaining alignment. Nothing is exploding. Nothing is being taken. Things are settling into truth, into order, into purpose. So when you feel that quiet shift, don't rush to question it. Don't look for noise where peace has arrived. Sit with it. Breathe with it. Ask yourself gently, what if this calm is the confirmation I've been waiting for? This is not chaos. This is completion beginning to unfold. Chosen one, there comes a sacred moment when what once felt immovable begins to loosen its grip. Not because you pushed harder, not because you explained yourself better, and not because you finally found the perfect strategy, but because the season shifted. What was stuck was never meant to stay frozen forever. It was waiting for alignment, and now, movement is beginning. Think back to the areas of your life that felt paused, the conversations that went nowhere, the plans that stalled, the doors that refused to open no matter how patiently you knocked. That stillness wasn't punishment, it was containment. God was holding things in place until your spirit, your timing, and your position could match what was coming. Can you feel it now? That subtle sense that the pressure is easing? This movement won't arrive like a flood. It won't overwhelm you or force you to catch up. It will come like a stream finding its path again. A message finally arrives. A delay resolves. An opportunity reappears with new clarity. One thing shifts, then another. Not everything at once, but enough to remind you that you are no longer stagnant. Enough to restore momentum to your faith. Momentum is powerful. When something begins to move, even slowly, hope returns. Your energy changes. You start waking up with direction instead of dread. The questions quiet down. The waiting feels purposeful instead of painful. And suddenly, you're not asking, why is nothing happening? You're asking, what should I prepare for next? Have you noticed how your inner posture has already begun to change? What's important to understand is this. Movement doesn't mean instant arrival. It means confirmation. It means the blockage has lifted. The gears are turning again. God rarely rushes the process, but He always restores motion when the time is right. When things begin to flow, even gently, it's a sign that alignment has been achieved behind the scenes. You may even feel emotional when this starts happening. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's relieving. There's a quiet gratitude that surfaces when you realize you're no longer stuck. Tears don't come from shock. They come from release, from knowing that the season of stagnation is ending without a fight. Pay attention to what moves first. Often the smallest shift is the signal. One open conversation, one cleared misunderstanding, one inner decision that suddenly feels easy instead of exhausting. These are not coincidences. They are indicators. God doesn't move everything at once because you're not meant to carry everything at once. He restores flow at the pace your spirit can sustain. And as movement returns, your role is simple. Don't rush it. Don't overthink it. Don't demand speed where stability is being rebuilt. Let flow teach you how to trust again. Ask yourself gently, can I allow progress without pressure? Can I receive motion without fear? Chosen one, stagnation is breaking. The ice is melting. The current is returning. And while the destination may still be forming, movement itself is the message. You are no longer paused. You are no longer blocked. You are in transition. And transition always begins with flow. Watch carefully, feel deeply, move wisely. Because when God restores movement, He's already written the next chapter. Chosen one, there is a moment that arrives after long silence, after unseen preparation, after quiet endurance, a moment where words finally become unnecessary. This is that kind of season. When God moves in your life, explanation becomes irrelevant. What once required effort to justify will suddenly stand on its own. Not because people changed, but because the evidence did. Think about how often you've had to explain yourself, your intentions, your delays, your choices, your growth. You've carried the weight of misunderstanding longer than you should have, trying to be clear in rooms that were never meant to hear you. But when divine movement enters the picture, clarity doesn't come through conversation, it comes through contrast. Can you feel how freeing that is? When God moves, results speak a language no argument can interrupt. The shift shows up in your peace, in your stability, in your direction. in the way doors open without resistance. People notice before you say a word. The same ones who questioned you begin observing quietly because something about you no longer needs defending. Have you ever noticed how truth grows louder when you stop trying to explain it? This is the power of alignment. When you're aligned, your life answers questions before they're asked. You don't need to announce growth. It reveals itself. You don't need to prove change. It's visible. And you don't need permission. Momentum confirms it. What God establishes carries authority without explanation. There's also healing here, because part of your exhaustion came from constantly translating yourself to people who weren't meant to walk your path. But this next phase removes that burden. The shift becomes public without promotion. The breakthrough becomes evident without storytelling. The fruit speaks for itself. Pay attention to how silence now works in your favor. Where silence once felt like absence, it becomes confidence. Where it once felt like hiding, it becomes grounding. You are no longer trying to convince anyone of your worth, your calling, or your direction. You're simply moving, and movement is undeniable. This doesn't mean everyone will celebrate. Some will be quiet. Some will rethink their assumptions. Some will feel uncomfortable without understanding why. But none of that requires your explanation. God didn't ask you to narrate the process. He asked you to trust it. And trust always produces results that speak louder than words. So when the shift becomes visible, resist the urge to clarify it. Let people observe. Let them interpret. Let them sit with what they see. Your responsibility is not to explain what happened, it's to steward what's happening. Ask yourself gently, can I allow my life to speak for me now? Can I rest in results instead of reactions? Can I let God be the explanation? Chosen one, this is the phase where your story no longer needs defending. The evidence is walking ahead of you, and what God is revealing through your life will speak clearly, calmly, and without announcement. Chosen one, there is a sacred difference between faith being tested and faith being strengthened. Tests exhaust you. Strengthening settles you. And this moment you are stepping into is not designed to pressure your belief. It is designed to confirm it. You are not being asked to believe harder, push deeper, or strain spiritually. You are being invited to recognize something quietly but unmistakably shifted. For so long, faith for you has meant holding on in the dark, trusting without proof, standing without reassurance. You believe because you chose to, not because you felt supported by evidence. That kind of faith builds endurance, but it also leaves scars. And God sees that. That's why this phase feels different. This time, faith is not about survival, it's about recognition. Have you noticed how your spirit feels calmer instead of anxious? How belief now feels grounded instead of strained? This strengthening comes from experience, not effort. You didn't convince yourself that something changed. You sensed it, in your body, in your breathing, in the way fear loosened its grip without you fighting it. Faith deepens when it's confirmed through peace, not panic. When trust grows because the atmosphere shifts, not because you forced yourself to stay hopeful. This is where many chosen ones misunderstand the moment. They think faith must always feel intense, dramatic, or emotionally heavy. But true strengthening often arrives quietly. It feels like stability, like relief, like standing on solid ground after a long season of uncertainty. You're not wondering if God will move. You're realizing He already did. Can you feel the difference between hoping for change and recognizing change? Your trust is expanding because it's being reinforced by alignment. Things are making sense internally before they make sense externally. You're no longer questioning every sign or overanalyzing every delay. There's a steadiness growing in you, a knowing, and knowing doesn't shout, it settles. This is how faith matures. Notice how you're responding differently now. Less urgency, less fear-based decision-making, less need for constant reassurance. That's not you becoming passive, that's you becoming anchored. Faith strengthens when it no longer needs adrenaline to survive. God is not asking you to prove your belief anymore. He's allowing you to experience its reward. The weight you carried while waiting is lifting, and in its place is quiet confidence. Not because everything is visible yet, but because the unseen no longer feels uncertain. Ask yourself this gently. When was the last time your faith felt calm instead of tense? When did trust begin to feel natural instead of forced? That's not coincidence. That's confirmation. Chosen one, this phase is not about passing another test. It's about standing in the evidence of what you already endured. Your faith isn't being challenged. It's being strengthened by peace. And that kind of faith doesn't shake easily. It roots deeply. And from that rooted place, everything else begins to grow. Chosen one, tomorrow is not the ending you've been waiting for. It is the opening you've been preparing for. That distinction matters. Endings close chapters. Beginnings shift direction. And what God is doing here is not tying a bow around your story. He is turning the page and inviting you to walk forward differently. So many times you imagined the day everything changes as a finish line. A moment where struggle disappears, answers arrive instantly, and the weight finally lifts all at once. But divine movement rarely works that way. God doesn't rush you to the end. He realigns you with the path. Tomorrow is not about completion, it's about orientation. It's the moment your steps begin to land on the right ground. Can you feel the difference between relief and readiness? One day can absolutely change direction. A single shift can reroute months, even years of stagnation. But direction is not destination. What begins tomorrow unfolds steadily, intentionally, and with care. This is how lasting transformation works. Not in emotional spikes that fade, but in grounded momentum that continues when the excitement settles. You're not being launched, you're being positioned. There's something sacred about slow growth after a long wait. Tomorrow brings clarity, not pressure. Alignment, not overload. You won't wake up needing to sprint. You'll wake up knowing where to place your foot next. And that's powerful, because when direction is clear, pace becomes less important. Have you noticed how peace often arrives before progress becomes visible? This beginning asks something different of you. Not desperation, not urgency, but stewardship. What God starts tomorrow is something you'll nurture, protect, and build upon. It's not fragile, but it is intentional. And intentional things grow best when handled with patience and trust. You don't need to force expansion. Growth will come naturally because the foundation is finally right. Think about how far you've already come. All the false starts, all the lessons learned the hard way, all the moments you thought you were behind when you were actually being prepared. Tomorrow honors that preparation. It doesn't erase the journey, it validates it. And now, instead of chasing change, you're walking with it. This is where many people get distracted, expecting fireworks instead of footing. But God is more interested in sustainability than spectacle. What begins quietly tomorrow will grow steadily afterward, in your decisions, in your confidence, in the way you trust yourself again. The journey continues, yes, but now it continues with direction instead of doubt. Ask yourself this: what if tomorrow isn't about everything changing, but about you finally moving forward without resistance? What if the greatest breakthrough isn't speed, but stability? Chosen one, don't rush this moment. Stand in it. Let it breathe. Tomorrow is not the finish line. It's the first aligned step of a journey that finally supports you. And from here, every step makes more sense.